for tuning in for another episode of HCTV. We hope everyone is healthy and staying safe with COVID and all the many changes that we're dealing with right now. Keep social distancing. For that reason, today we are doing HGCTV by Zoom. Remember to wash your hands, stay home, and play your part. Today you're in for a special treat because we have our very first HGCTV with guests joining us. And before we jump into the discussion, we want to remind everybody out there to subscribe to HGCTV. Talk about a deep dive into a variety of topics that are important to us in the community, primarily involving the law, criminal law, family law. Today is child welfare. And we are going to talk to some people who really get into the nuts and bolts of child welfare, of helping kids that are abused and neglected. So if topics like this interest you, help us thank them by subscribing and liking our post. Without further ado, I want to welcome today's guest, Miss Marina Gonzales, the President and CEO of Child Advocacy San Antonio. Marina, thank you for being here. I also want to welcome your VP of Development, Blair Ortmann. Blair, thank you for joining us today too. It's Blair on video and Marina's joining us by audio. So thank you guys for taking the time to share your mission with us and with our viewers today.
Thank you so much for having us.
Oh, this is our pleasure. We're excited. So to give our viewers an introduction, really, for those who don't know what CASA does, can you tell us a little bit about what CASA is generally and what it is that y'all specifically and your volunteers do?
Absolutely, Joe. I'd be happy to. So first and foremost, thank you to everyone listening and everyone interested in the welfare of the children in our community. I will tell you that CASA has been around for over 35 years as the only nonprofit in Bexar County providing court-appointed special advocates to our child abuse and neglect cases through our Bexar County Children's Court, which means that we take community members from all over San Antonio, provide the accreditation through our training program to get them ready to serve as court-appointed advocates through our judges, to be the eyes and ears for the court. And really, it's an advocacy program to make sure that while our children who've been removed from their home due to unfortunate experiences, that they have an advocate there reporting back to the judges on how they're doing.
So let me kind of get a personal introduction from you guys. Marina, what is it that you do as CEO?
So I've been with Child Advocates a little going on 3 years now as their president and CEO, and my job is to make sure that all of the operational needs of the agency are met, be that face for the agency and see the big picture, and guide our team, which is over 45 employees and 600 volunteer advocates, through the advocacy process to support and fulfill our mission.
Okay, and how did you get into working with CASA originally?
Well, I started as a volunteer. I'm an attorney by education and was working in healthcare law with one of our federally qualified health centers for a few years in San Antonio. And I got to know CASA because some of the kids were being advocated for through our medical providers that often are one of our first reporters of abuse. And that's how I knew CASA. I heard of them and heard of what they did. So while working there, I decided I wanted to do a little more and have some volunteer time outside of work. So I actually joined up, took the training program, and started with my first case. And then I had a call from our Bexar County judge, Peter Sakai, who heads up the children's court. And he said, we're looking for a new CEO for CASA, and I think you should throw your name in the hat. It's really, it needed just some guidance in the nonprofit world, needing some more fundraising, needing to grow and see what else we could do to serve more kids. So I applied and here I am.
Yeah, that's great. We'll talk more about it later, but volunteering with CASA is not always the stress relieving side gig that it might be. But I think it's very fulfilling. based on what I've seen from the volunteers. Blair, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with CASA.
Well, thank you. So I came to CASA not quite a year ago now. I think I'm closing in on 10 months. And I'm from another local nonprofit that deals with homelessness. And, you know, so many of the children that we see at CASA, their families are also struggling. And so in the homelessness world, we see families whose children are being removed because of they don't have a safe place for their family to live. And we're in the homelessness world, we were blessed to be able to try to find locations for those families to stay, to be reunited. And so it was so exciting to me to get to be then on the other side of that, really focusing on the children and making sure that their needs are met, because that's a very traumatic moment in a child's life. Regardless of the circumstances of their family, it's their family. And so being removed away from your family, regardless of circumstances, is very, very tough for the kids. And in my role as VP of development, you know, I have one of the best jobs in the world, because I really get to connect people who have a deep desire to help and they just don't know how. And I get to show them the ways in which they're able to directly help some of these children who really need that support. And whether people are able to give the time and attention needed to become a volunteer advocate, or if their best way to help is through financial donations or donations of, you know, basic necessities, that sort of thing. I love being able to find that thing that someone wants to do and being able to connect them to those folks who need that help.
So, I mean, that's a good point, right? What CASA does is intense on the front lines. Volunteers are going out to work with kids on a very personal level, filling the gaps in our system between what CPS, what we often refer to as the department, can do for kids because they're overworked, what our children's court can do, which is very busy, and what the lawyers, even the lawyers representing kids, can do, because they too are a lot of times overwhelmed. So you guys are sending volunteers out there to help kids who are going through trauma, to work with them, but also with the families and help stabilize them. And there's lots of different roles for people who are watching this. If you're interested, you don't have to be on the front lines where that might be a little too much for you. There's other ways to help out. But can you guys, Marina and Blair, tell me a little bit about how you prepare your volunteers who are working with the kids and the families directly?
Absolutely, Joe. I'd be happy to describe a little bit more about our training process. And since it is, at the end of it, you're sworn in by the court. So we have to make sure that our advocates who have, you know, no legal background or may not have that experience before, although we do have some great attorney advocates as well, but you don't need that experience. When you come to us, you're going to experience 33 hours of classroom training. Right now, that is virtually done due to our current situation, which we're excited about as well. That's a new opportunity to reach more people. But after your 33 hours of training, you will get sworn in and appointed to a case. Now, here's some things that we'll prepare you for, because a lot of people have little to no experience with our child welfare system. And as you know, Joe, it can be a complicated system and one that involves multiple parties. And what we try to do is number one, prepare you for what that process is like in court. Some of our advocates will be called to testify, and they do also report monthly to their supervisor, and then usually on a quarterly basis with a court report. So that's just the logistical side of it, of what to prepare for in that process. But the other, you know, and arguably more importantly, is how to connect with the kids. And we see so many kids with the trauma they've endured, their experiences. We try to meet them where they're at their age level, and approach them gently to know that they can build that trust with the advocate. And that's a hard thing to do to reach a kid who has already been through so much and may have a natural hesitation towards adults. So a lot of it is developmental training of what to expect for a child at a certain age range. So there is some of that psychological evaluation of what to look for our kids, what they're going through. It's also sort of a mentorship building. You're building a rapport, and you're becoming a resource for them and a trusted advisor for them. So that's part of the classroom training. And the other part is really how to effectively advocate, not just in the courtroom, but our other areas of impact include medical advocacy and educational advocacy. So that can mean, due to our court order we have, that the advocates have the ability to go to the doctor's appointment or to go talk to the teachers in school. So they have a lot of reach. And so trying to cover that, we can't say you'll come out of it completely ready to go, but we do our best to give you an overview of what that system looks like and how to be effective, and then pair you appropriately with one of our great staff members who will serve as your resource and supervisor that helps you along the way.
Marina, I think that's great. And that was something I was going to say, is that I know after the training, you guys work in teams. We often have supervisors present, even with experienced CASAs in court or during mediation. So it's a very supportive network. But at this point, some of our viewers may be thinking, wow, that's a big job, because it is a big job. So before we get into some of the nuts and bolts of what y'all do, can you each share with us something motivational, something inspirational from your experience, a story of a difference that you've seen CASA make?
I'm happy to share one. And then Blair, I'm sure you can think of many stories to share as well. Most recently, we launched one of our programs called College Docket, which is a college readiness. That's part of that educational advocacy. So it does sound overwhelming for those thinking of becoming an advocate, but really what it boils down to is that relationship one-on-one with the child. All the other stuff, the staff's there to support you every step of the way and help you out. So you're never on your own. If you face a challenge in your case, that's why your supervisor's there. And so one of the great stories to share is most recently on College Docket. It's a new program in partnership with our local universities and colleges, along with the Children's Court, that created a separate docket just for our teenagers to help get them and prepare them to go on to higher ed. And that's because our numbers for our kids after high school are staggering, that the majority of them do not go on to college or help build that career path to independence as an adult. And I'm happy to tell you, one of our kiddos was accepted into St. Mary's with a full ride scholarship, which is so tremendous and so uplifting to hear after months of working and trying to help her prepare, that ultimately she was able to achieve that and will now be supported into a higher educational position.
It's outstanding. I didn't get a full ride to St. Mary's.
Yes, that is a rarity.
Yeah, that's outstanding. So Blair, do you have any particular stories of where being a CASA, working with CASA, has been especially rewarding for you?
I think here recently it has been so amazing to see our advocates kind of rising to the occasion with, we've got a lot of restrictions in place now. A lot of the things that they have done in the past as far as reaching out to their CASA kids, the foster children, and spending time with them and all that, it's not business as usual right now. And so they've been extremely creative in still getting, meeting the needs for those children. I think one of my favorite stories that I've heard recently is one of the advocates, because of the COVID situation, it's a sibling group, and the siblings are in multiple placements. And so the siblings are able to communicate and have sibling visits and all that, but right now they can't because they're in different placements. And so this advocate realizing how important that is for that sibling bond to continue, and for them to have that little bit of normalcy in their life, managed to coordinate with multiple foster moms to get them onto video chatting so that the siblings could all at least see each other and chat and talk about what's been going on and share their personal feelings about this. And that's one of those things that it wouldn't have happened without our advocate really pushing for it. But it's one, and it seems like a little thing a lot of times to many of us, but it's not for those kids. It's huge for them because their siblings may be the only thing that they still have to hold on to from kind of their before life and their past. So anything that we can do to help those family bonds continue is just vital for their long-term success and stability. So I just think it's great. We've had advocates who have been hand-making cards to send to their kids, who have been, calling on FaceTime and reading stories or singing songs to younger children so that the foster parents can have a few minutes to do laundry or whatever, or take a phone meeting or something as they need to. So it's been great. We went into this just really going, okay, well, how is this going to work? How are we going to do this? And we didn't have the answers, but the thing is, we don't need the answers because we have such an amazing group of volunteer advocates that they came up with the answers, and they're leading us in how this how to move forward with the kids.
I think that's great. I've been on the tail end of a lot of cases, and it's unusual for our clients, for the kids to come out and be particularly happy with any of the lawyers. Sometimes we have to give them hard advice, but I've seen a lot of volunteer advocates get hugs when we were able to finish things out. So I know that often from the advocate's perspective, it's not a huge deal what they're doing, but even small things make a huge difference to kids who are in care because they've gone through so much. And having a point of contact who's stable just makes a tremendous difference. I want to take this opportunity to thank you guys. I know our gratitude isn't what drives you, but we really do appreciate having our CASAs in court. It makes a big difference to all of the rest of us who are working on these cases. It really does. So now that we've got a little bit of a big picture idea and we know how much of an impact CASA makes for our kids, I'd like to kind of get into some more detailed questions about what it's like to be a CASA, what kind of things you do. And so one of the first things I'd like to do is, and you guys tell me if I'm wrong, but this is my perception as an outsider of CASA. You guys are independent, your volunteers are independent, they're gonna come to court, they're gonna tell us what's what. Often they're gonna know the case better sometimes than the attorneys, even the attorneys for their clients. And they're not afraid, at least in Bexar County and some of the surrounding counties where I've worked, to be actual advocates. How is it being an independent advocate for your clients and at the same time having to work with other professionals in the community? Is it something where you want to distance yourselves?
Joe, I can say that it's a balance, and you really have to work to maintain that balance, both because part of our welfare system, as you know, is collaborative. It is a different court process than other proceedings. We do have to check in and have ongoing communication with everyone involved in the child's life, and that does include ad litem, CPS, our attorneys, our judges, mom and dad, the caseworkers. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts. So on one hand, it's a collaborative effort. It's important to build those relationships and rapport while maintaining our objectivity. As part of our mission, and the most important role in court, as you mentioned, is being objective, because that's the only way you can truly advocate. If you're, just checking the boxes and being a yes man, then you're really not getting into the needs of what the child's experiencing. And that does mean that sometimes we have differences of opinion or recommendations. That does mean sometimes we don't always agree with our partners at CPS. But I can tell you, it is so important and vital to have a CASA because we don't have skin in the game other than to take care of the kid. Our role is to truly just make sure that if there's something the child needs, that we're letting our judges know to facilitate that care. And that's our objective. So to keep that balance is something that we do teach in class, and our staff does an amazing job of making sure that they have the right connections, but that they help keep those boundaries in place so we can fulfill our mission.
So just to kind of clarify, you used the term ad litem, which we know means a guardian ad litem or an attorney ad litem, who are court appointed to represent kids legally if they're an attorney ad litem, and make decisions for a child if they're a guardian ad litem. There's different ways that works in different jurisdictions. Do you guys have any challenges in working with those ad litems? They tend to be good allies for you.
They really do. Some of our ad litems do amazing jobs in making sure they're checking in on the kids. They do have their role to play within the system, and it's an important one. Where we differ a little bit is in that independence as a nonprofit and being able to control through our training process, the type of work that we're doing. So I wouldn't say that it's a challenge to work with them, but I will say that, yeah, we do sometimes not necessarily agree. But I think perhaps one of the differences in the role is they may not be encouraged to get as bonded or connected or spend as much time with the children as the CASA does. And that's part of the beauty of what we do is it's built on that trusted relationship. And that's certainly not to say that our ad litems don't do a great job of connecting with our kids, but we know our judges rely on us because we're the one entity, that one adult that spent the most time and hours getting to know our kids and the adults in the child's life. So I think it's a collaboration, but it's a different role. So I think all of us working together, we're trying to be that safety net for these kids while they're navigating this challenging world of foster care.
So let me ask this, right? Because I've been pestering you guys about how well you're able to work with others. What are some pointers that you have for us as attorneys, especially ad litems, to help support CASA's mission in specific cases?
That is a great question. I'm so glad that you're asking. The best thing that we can do by working together is to make sure that we have that communication. I know that, a lot of our attorneys are juggling many cases in their own practice or may have different practice areas. And I can certainly appreciate that as an attorney. I really do. And I think one of the things we always try to encourage in building those collaborative relationships is that ongoing communication. So just as we ask to keep us in the loop of the strategy and what's going on and how we can help, we ask that, that in return you are communicating and we can help as well by sharing what's going on. We may have some information that would help the attorney further their case. So that's something we always emphasize is we're here to work with everyone because it truly is a system.